Yes, people, what's happening? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to another live stream. And can you believe it? 6 weeks has been and gone. The World Cup is done and the Premier League is returning in a week's time and Chelsea will be back in action. And in tonight's stream, we're just going to be looking back over Chelsea players' performances at the World Cup and just a bit of general Chelsea chat. And I'm delighted, as always, to be joined by Pys, bro. Thanks for coming in. As always, really appreciate it. Before we get into the Chelsea stuff, what have your thoughts? What were your thoughts on the World Cup? Have you enjoyed the break from Chelsea?
Yeah, I suppose so. Not really looking forward to us returning, to be honest. But there's always that sort of lingering excitement that, we might play a bit better. I mean, we can't. Well, hopefully, we can't play worse than we were when the World Cup started. So yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward a slight bit, but there's a overriding sense of just panic and I think especially when you watch that final, Messi versus Mbappe, you saw all the goals, the drama, the semi-finals, and then you have to go back to watching Chelsea try and break down Bournemouth on a Tuesday night. It's a bit less exciting, but we'll get there hopefully.
Yeah, for sure. It's a little bit less exciting, but I suppose as fans, we probably wouldn't have it any other way. It's like it will be good to get back into it, but I guess with the World Cup coming to an end, you kind of are reminded of how bad it's been in the first half of the season in terms of kind of the performance levels. The fact we're 8 points off Champions League football, lost 4 of the last 5 games in the build up to the World Cup. There's a lot of work to be done, and obviously it will start against Bournemouth, but that'll come in a few days' time. But in terms of Chelsea players at the World Cup, mate, obviously we had 12 representatives out in Qatar, 15 if you include Zakaria, Ampadu and Lukaku. Let's start with the standout players. I mean, guys, there is a poll at the top of the chat. So if you want to vote on who you think was Chelsea's best player at the World Cup, please do get involved with it. Let's start with Hakim Ziyech, mate. Probably, I'd say Chelsea's best player at the World Cup. And from Morocco, I thought it was outstanding. Were you surprised to see that level of performance from him, given we've not really seen much of it in a Chelsea shirt?
Yeah, it's interesting. First off, you said he was Chelsea's best player. I've seen a lot of debates about that. Yeah, I mean, I was a little bit surprised. I think just mainly because of the lack of game time he had, and I think when you don't play that many games, it's hard to, first off play well in your first game for your country, but second off actually get into a rhythm. And he played the second most amount of minutes behind Mateo Kovacic, which was something I calculated in the article I did. And yeah, I mean to get in that sort of rhythm again was good to see from him. I think he looked quite dangerous in matches. And then there was other matches where he just kind of had to adhere to the game plan, I think, and just kind of defend a little bit more. There were certain games where, I mean, all round really his tournament, all tournament really, he was really good defensively. I noticed he definitely puts that shift in. He was pressing hard. He was working back. Morocco were real fighters in this World Cup, from the goalkeeper to the striker. So yeah, I was impressed with him. In terms of Chelsea, when we come back, I'm not sure if he'll play more. He could even leave in January, to be honest. I think we've obviously got Amari Hutchinson on the right wing, who's Chelsea fans want to see. I want to see him before Ziyech, if I'm going to be completely honest with you. But on merit, I think Ziyech probably does come back and at least get some more minutes in the next 2-3 games, because I think the January window is so close to these games now that we've got coming up. It's like, well, we got to really make a decision what we're going to do, because on one point there's no point playing him if he's going to move. But at another point, you might want to kind of attract bids. So it's kind of it's a difficult situation Chelsea and Graham Potter really have been put in. I say that as well with Pulisic. I think these two guys have proved this World Cup that they have got that ability in them. Albeit, obviously, international football is different from Premier League football and club football in general. But they've definitely got the ability to play more minutes for Chelsea, get more starts, not just minutes, because I think on merit as well. We was all moaning about performances like Raheem Sterling and stuff, and Mount in the front three. Yet they'd keep coming back into the side. Newcastle away, you played Gallagher in a front three. Like, it's those sort of things for me have to stop. Like, if you're going to keep them, they need to get those deserved minutes, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, yeah, for sure. I mean, just on Ziyech, I think he's obviously a player that definitely kind of thrives off having having a lot of responsibility and perhaps being the main guy in the team. Obviously, at Chelsea, he's not the main guy. There's not a lot of. He doesn't have a lot of responsibility on his shoulders in terms of having to be that guy to deliver, because we have got other players that are obviously better than him. But it is interesting that I thought he did really well, particularly when Morocco played when he was playing wide right or left in a 4-3-3 system. We know he's very good in that. But it was interesting when you mentioned a couple of underwhelming games, particularly that semi-final against France. I thought he wasn't great, and I don't think there's a coincidence that kind of coincided with Morocco switching to a back three. And we've seen that for whatever reason, and technically it shouldn't really make too much difference because you're still playing a front three on the pitch. But for whatever reason, Ziyech seems to be far less effective when playing when there's a back three rather than a back four on the pitch. I mean, look, I agree with you that I think he should definitely be getting more minutes at Chelsea, certainly in these next games. Bournemouth at home, Forest away, he should definitely be featuring more. And as you say, when I was up at Newcastle, when you got players like Ziyech on the bench, and I like Conor Gallagher, but let's be honest, Conor Gallagher shouldn't be starting in a front three ahead of Hakim Ziyech. So I agree with you that sort of selections like that do need to stop, and players need to be given a chance on merit. And yes, you can argue international football's different. It's a different setup. It's different tactics, different manager, different responsibilities within the team. But you're still playing a game of football, and he's done very well. So he should be given, an opportunity. I'm not saying he should. Well, actually, maybe he should start. I mean, look, it can't be much worse than what we've seen already. But it was also the fact that Chelsea could be looking at it from a business perspective and think, right, he's had a fantastic World Cup. That's increased the fee that we can potentially get for him as well. But in terms of Pulisic, another one who's had a good World Cup. He obviously scored a couple of assists, a couple of man of the matches. Probably the best player on the pitch in the US's draw with England. Again, I'm not too surprised to see him do well for the US. He generally does pretty well for them. How do you see his Chelsea future looking? Because you speak to a lot of people, like there's a talented player there, but again, like with so many others, it's frustrating because we don't see it on a consistent basis. But he does seem to have kind of put the injury issues behind him that have been hampering him. And I mean, I personally feel it's probably his last season at the club, but he can certainly play a really important role in this second half of the season if given the opportunities.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was interesting. He came out and said the other day, like, Chelsea's where I'm at now, so that's what I'll focus on. But anything can kind of happen in the future. Football's fast, that sort of thing. So when you hear players come out with that sort of, language and the way they are speaking about their futures, it usually leads towards them leaving. I don't think it'll be in January unless we get some sort of crazy offer. And also the thing I find about Pulisic is, one, I don't think we'd sell him inside, the Premier League. So I think that leaves us really with limited options. I mean, Borussia Dortmund don't tend to, splash out the cash. Maybe if they sell Bellingham, they could bring him back. But would Pulisic want to go back to Dortmund? Wouldn't you rather just want to stay at Chelsea? Like,
Yeah.
you've kind of upgraded and then downgraded again, haven't you? So, Bayern Munich maybe after a winger if Mane's injury's bad. I read that, but
Juventus, Di Maria is not exactly getting too much younger, is he?
I mean, they've got financial difficulties as well. So, I don't see too many clubs for Pulisic. That's the problem. It's like that for a couple of our players as well. Like Mendy, I was saying the other day, I don't see who buys him. Like, who needs a goalkeeper? Who's going to actually pay what we want? Like, I know he's been bad, but gee, like, who's coming forward? Like, that's the thing.
Yeah.
I think some fans, like, they just skip past, I will sell them. Like, logically think about it. Go through the leagues, the top teams. Who's actually going to bid for these players? I don't see anyone. Maybe I'll be surprised, but yeah, next summer is when I'd expect him to go. Again, we'll see in terms of injuries and circumstances at different clubs, but I think he deserves more minutes. I think he was brilliant. But the one thing I always notice with Pulisic in America is because he's like their main guy, and I was impressed with their team as well. By the way, their overall team, I thought they played quite well.
They did well.
But because he's their like main guy, he kind of takes that responsibility. It's almost like what Ziyech does. It's kind of like the teams around them sort of thing. They're the main guy who's going to make something happen, so they have that responsibility. At Chelsea, they don't sort of grab the game by the scruff of the neck like they could do. You know what I mean? They're kind of just another player sort of thing. And for me, I just feel like, why, if you're Ziyech, if you're Pulisic, why don't you take, like, when you start games for Chelsea, why don't you, or even come off the bench, um, just go for it, like, just show what you're about. And they have done that on occasions, but again, not regularly enough. Yeah, so I think more starts are needed, but they need to do more as well. Specifically Ziyech, I think Pulisic has deserved his time now for a long time. I think like I was saying this the other day to someone. I think if you start Sterling 5 games in a row and you start Pulisic 5 games in a row, I'm convinced right now you'd get more out of Pulisic. You
Oh
may
yeah, I
get
think that's a
you,
no-brainer.
you may get maybe one more goal or assist out of Sterling, but in terms of performance, dribbles, creation, I think you get much more out of Pulisic, which just goes to show, I guess, how bad Sterling's been for us.
And he certainly has been. But yeah, Pulisic is definitely one, perhaps more so than Ziyech, that deserves a run of games in the team, because every time he's played this season, he has done pretty well. Yet he always finds himself on the bench the next game or an unused sub for the next couple of games before he finds himself back in a team again. I don't care who you are or how good you are. It's so hard to build up any sort of form or any sort of confidence when you play well one week and then you find yourself out the team for a couple of games and then you play again after 3 matches. It's like you've got to have, as you say, if you're going to give Sterling 5 runs, 5 starts in a row, which and Sterling has been starting pretty much every week for Chelsea and not performing, then you have to give Pulisic that same opportunity and be able to compare, like for like, because it's so difficult. Pulisic, for example, look at that game against Wolves at the Bridge, done really well, scored. Next couple of games, I think he was an unused sub. So, or he's definitely unused sub for one of the next 2 games. So it is really hard to build up consistent performances and build up that level of confidence as a player when, you play well and then you suddenly find yourself out of the team again, being replaced by someone who's been dropping disaster classes week in, week out. So I think that's something that Potter needs to look at. And, rather than picking, we've said this loads of times, but, pick players that deserve to play regardless of their name or what they've done in their career. And no one's got a right to start for any team. And, Chelsea's no different. You have to earn that right to start. It doesn't matter what Sterling's done at City. If you're not performing in a Chelsea shirt, then you don't deserve to start. And it's as simple as that. But let's move on to the England lads. We'll just quickly get Conor Gallagher out of the way. No surprises that he played no minutes, really, is there? I guess it was just an experience for a young player to be at a major tournament and just kind of learn what it's all about.
Yeah, I honestly, it baffles me. Like, I know he's not like amazing or anything, but in some of the games England played, I think he could have come off the bench and offered them something, just in terms of energy. But it does baffle me, like how you take players and just you don't give them one single minute. Like James Maddison didn't play a
Yeah,
single minute.
that was mad.
Like, are you actually insane, Southgate? But anyway, that's a different topic. But yeah, no, I think he would have enjoyed the experience. But again, I just think it's almost like a waste of time. Like for me, I just think as a player, you must get so frustrated, surely. Like you're waiting and waiting, even for just for a cameo off the bench. You played your part. Then it just kind of, yeah, I don't know. It's just
I
it
mean,
baffles me a little bit.
you almost feel that from a selfish perspective. Obviously, he'd be delighted to be in the squad, but you almost feel from like a Chelsea perspective and a selfish fan perspective that it would have been better for Gallagher not to go to the World Cup and have the time on the training ground at Cobham with Potter and the rest of the lads. I think he would have been better served doing that in terms of the rest of the season. Obviously, he's not going to say no to being called up to the World Cup squad. But I suppose I look back at it now, I think it probably would have been better if he just didn't go. But it's just the way it is. But let's move on to kind of the main 2 guys. I mean, let's start with Mason Mount. You can't go on Twitter these days without seeing Mason Mount's name in one way or another. We know full well that he's had a difficult start to the season. Performances have not been up to the standards that he set and that we expect from him. And for me, I have to say, mate, I was disappointed with his World Cup. I thought, obviously, in that first game against Iran, he did very well. And then against the US, he was terrible. And then from there on in, he found himself out the side in just a couple of appearances from the bench, obviously winning a penalty against the French. But he didn't really do anything to kind of fill me with confidence that he's going to come back from this World Cup and we're going to see a different Mason Mount in a Chelsea shirt. I mean, mate, what did you think of Mount? And where do you think Mount's at the moment in his Chelsea career? Because I don't want to say he's at a crossroads in it, because it's not really, but this is probably the first real difficult spell in his Chelsea career he's had, and it's kind of coinciding with the fact that, contract negotiations are stalling at the moment for whatever reason. How do you see things for Mount at the moment? Because it's been a difficult time for him and one that he's not really had in his career so far.
Yeah, I think he'll be disappointed with his World Cup. I think obviously Sterling, a little bit different circumstances, have had to leave early, but yeah, I think I was just surprised. Like Southgate usually plays Mount all the time, but he obviously found that team that he liked, and Mount sat on the bench for a few games. So yeah, I just think with Mount, like as much as has played poorly, I've seen so much like attacking football this World Cup, even under Southgate playing a four at the back. I want that with Chelsea now. I want Mount to play as a number 8. I don't want him out wide. I want him going forward, getting near the box, and trying to score goals. So yeah, I think plan going forward now has to be, a 4-3-3 for me. We
Yeah.
need to try that in a couple of games at least. I know we tried it in the friendly, but again, until we actually see that with the first teamers, I'm just a bit worried that we keep playing this stupid 3-4-3. I'm sick of it. I've watched too much of it under Tuchel. These players clearly they don't perform consistently enough in it, and we don't create enough chances. We need to do something.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think 4-3-3. Try that, see how it goes.
I mean, mate, do you think there's, his contract's up in 24. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that he's obviously going to sign, he's going to stay a Chelsea player. But do you feel part of him might be thinking that he might be exploring his options elsewhere? You just think it's kind of standard negotiations. It's well documented that you generally don't accept the first contract that you get offered. But do you think there's any chance at all that he might be assessing his options?
No, I don't think so at all. He's not that type of player. Same with Reece James. I think they're Chelsea through and through. I expect him to sign. And we don't know if what's coming out in the media is actually the case as well, which I will, point out. But yeah, no, I don't. Mount is literally like, he is that sort of, I don't know, just from Cobham, he's that kind of figurehead.
Yeah.
Same with Reece James. I don't think he'll be exploring his options. I think the only way he'd explore his options if Chelsea said, right, that's it. You're not getting any other offers. But even then, I genuinely think he's so committed to Chelsea that he'd go back to whatever they offered him and just accept it. I'm literally that convinced he won't
Yeah.
leave Chelsea. I'm that convinced.
No, I don't think he'll leave either. But it's certainly I think a disappointing World Cup for him, and it's going to be a massive second half of the season for him because he's really got to step up. But I agree, like I don't want to see him in a front three. He needs to be in a midfield three for me to get the best out of him. So let's hope that perhaps we do bring in that holding midfielder in January or a holding midfield player, and we can kind of go more 4-3-3 for the remainder of the season. But let's move on to Raheem Sterling quickly. Well, apart from kind of the first few games of this season when Thomas Tuchel was here, since Tuchel's departed, Sterling's form has just virtually been non-existent. There's been a couple of moments here. He's not anything like the player that we paid that money for. We're not getting the returns that we should be getting from him. This is a guy that left City because he wanted to be the main man, but he's doing anything other than being the main man at Chelsea at the moment. For a disappointing World Cup. Yeah, goal and an assist in that first game, but from there on in, terrible. And he should obviously left early to deal with a family issue, but he should never have come back. And that 20 minutes off the bench against France was a joke. But mate, difficult times with Sterling as well. What do you think needs to happen to get the best out of him? Because I thought, normally in an England shirt, he's been so good. He virtually carried England to the Euros final last time out, but this time he was comfortably outperformed by the likes of Saka, Foden, Rashford, maybe even Grealish to an extent as well. I mean, it's a difficult time for him right now, isn't it? What do you think Chelsea need to do to get more out of Sterling? Because at the moment, we're just getting absolutely nothing from him.
Again, I think it comes down to formation for me. I think he's stifled a little bit with what we're doing right now. I think we need to just play more attacking. We need to start more aggressively as well. We don't start games aggressive enough. Man City for several years, you know how quickly they start games.
Yeah.
They'll create a chance, a big chance within the first 10 minutes usually. And often or not, it falls to Sterling. And whether he missed or scored, he kind of, in that first 10, 20 minutes, he thought, I've got a chance here. We're going to have a good game. At Chelsea, you might go 55 minutes without a big chance. That's a huge problem. That's a massive problem. So for me, I think whether it's the left or right-hand side, personally, I prefer him on the left when he can get in the box, like Reece James assisting against Leicester when he's just like there lurking on that left-hand side. But he needs to play better individually. I think some of it, his dribbling has been atrocious. I can't remember the last time he took on someone.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, just be more consistent. But we also need to play more consistent. Like it's not just
yeah.
him; it's a team thing. Like I say this, like people hate Aubameyang. I'm just like I know he's not Aubameyang of old, but like how many big chances has he had at Chelsea? He's probably had about 3 or 4. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? Like
literally
it's
like
a
hardly
joke,
any.
you know? It's like with Broja as well. I know Broja's injured now, unfortunately, but everyone was like, "Oh, Broja's crap, mate." He was getting more chances at Southampton for fuck's sake. Like
Mate, he
we know
started what
it's
one game against
ridiculous.
Brentford, and that was about it. Like
Like
he was getting,
Nathan Redmond was creating more chances for him than fucking the
yeah,
whole of our team. Like it's a joke.
yeah. It is a joke. For me, mate, Sterling. When we get back into action, Sterling should not be an automatic starter at all. He should be holding the bench for the next couple of games. In my opinion, I honestly think someone, obviously Ziyech, Pulisic deserves to start ahead of him. I even rather it got to the point now for me where I actually think Amari Hutchinson would be better off starting than Sterling right now. I know that might sound like a bit ridiculous, but I just think we would actually get more from Hutchinson against Bournemouth than we potentially would from Raheem Sterling. But it's difficult to tell. But I mean, it's still early days. I mean, Sterling's been here half a season, so it's a little bit early to judge. But it is concerning that he's not got anywhere near the heights that perhaps we would have been expecting from this. What we got here needs to play 4-2-3-1 on the left. Yeah, I think he's probably better on the left. What's this? Aubameyang needs assistance. Yep. Do you think Potter will go back to start choosing big names again and forget about Hall and Hutchinson? Does he have... Pys, what do you think about this, mate? We have discussed it a lot on this channel and on other channels as well. This idea of picking players because of their reputation. Do you think? I think Potter has been guilty of that at times. Tuchel was certainly guilty of it as well. Do you think it's about time now that we did see the likes of Lewis Hall playing regularly, perhaps Hutchinson getting a few more regular starts at the expense of more established players?
100%, bro. I've been calling this for ages. Just calling for a manager just to just show some balls and just do what's right for the team. What's right in the moment. It's all about the moment. Who's got confidence? Who's going to take this chance? Who's suited for this opponent? Like this happened under Tuchel as well. Tuchel was, this was one of the things I didn't necessarily like about Tuchel was the fact he literally never changed the team hardly, especially
Yeah.
in the forward line. It would just be the same. Like we could guess Tuchel's team pretty much. We might not guess like how we would play or something, but we'd guess the lineup pretty much. And to be fair, Potter has kind of chopped and changed, but it's still the same. It's still Mount. It's still Sterling. It's still I don't know.
Well, it's
Trying to think.
Havertz starts most
Havertz,
weeks
yeah,
as
like
well. Yeah.
it's only when you think about it, really, it's only really 2, 3, maybe 4 players at most. You don't like you feel like they could hold bench for a couple of games, but it's like to answer this question, I think he will go back to choosing the big names again because
I think he would as well.
but again, I don't really understand why because if the media reporting is true and if he doesn't get top 4, he's not going to be sacked anyway. Well, why don't you
Where's the
play these
incentive?
players
Yeah,
then?
well, exactly.
Like, like this, if there's that, if it's already been decided, then why would you like? Because usually when you're under pressure or you need results, you go to when you pick your lineup, you think, right, he's a big player, he could produce. Like you don't think, oh, Hutchinson over Sterling. That's just not what. Yeah,
No, no.
even though it may make sense, it's not like what your brain leans towards. Like, so I think I think he's got to. I think he's got to play Hutchinson. I think he's, in terms of Hall, I think that's a difficult one because I think for me, he actually looked really good at left wing back.
Yeah,
But I don't want us playing three at the back. So, and I
this is
think
the problem, isn't it?
if we go with a 4-3-3, I mean, you naturally have Mount dropping back, you have Kovacic, you have Chukwuemeka, who I want to see start. You've got Gallagher, you've got other players that can play there. So Hall's a bit more of a difficult one, but Hutchinson, I mean, our wingers are all playing shit, so why not give him a
Well, mate,
start?
I mean,
He looked brilliant in that friendly. He looked
he
like a good
did.
player.
I mean, I was down at the Amex earlier in the season where we got hammered 4-1 and Hutchinson was unused sub. And I'm just thinking, well, why we're losing 3-1 and again, we're definitely not going to win. he could have just been chucked on then just to get some experience. Like that doesn't really make sense to me. But yeah, for sure, youngsters, like at the end of the day, I think for me, it doesn't matter how old you are or what you've done in your career. You've got to be picked on the here and the now. And right now, these youngsters are outperforming the more established senior players and should therefore be in the team. I think it's as simple as that in regards to that situation. In terms of kind of let's move forward to Germany and Kai Havertz. I'm not going to go through every single player, just kind of the main ones really. But what did you make of Havertz's World Cup? Because people always say, he plays better for Germany. Yet he did get himself a few goals, but ultimately, I sort of look at it for Havertz, and it's like it's another team that perhaps he doesn't really have a place in terms of the starting lineup. He started at centre forward against Japan. He was terrible. Didn't play at all against Spain, and then he obviously came off the bench and bagged 2 against Costa Rica. It's a bit, I don't know. I honestly thought Havertz could have had a half decent World Cup, but I kind of look at it and just think it's kind of just more of what we've come to see from Havertz from the last 2 years, is that he can score a couple of goals here and there, but then he doesn't really do anything else. And I felt again in this World Cup and this German side, which many people say that he's more suited to, we didn't really see anything from him that we've not seen before.
Yeah, I'm personally done with Havertz. Honestly, mate, I can't do it anymore. I can't put myself through the belief. He's becoming like Werner in terms of like, I just feel like when he starts, he can do something, but he actually is pretty crap. Great what he did against Costa Rica, but again, they weren't hard goals, to be honest with you.
No.
So yeah, and again, like that's coming off the bench. If he started, he probably would have been crap. So, I mean, it's just, I don't really know where to stand with him other than, I just don't know. He's just so like this is his 3rd season here. I know the first season, you kind of give to him a little bit. He weren't really playing in the right position, but what is the right position? We've been debating this for 3 years now. So
Mate,
it's
this
like,
is.
I'm just fed up with it. I think he's going to go. By the way, I feel like
I think he will as well.
Yeah, with Nkunku coming in, I don't see where Havertz starts. So he has a future here. I don't think he'll be here next summer.
No, particularly if someone like Rafa Leao came in as well. I agree. I don't see where Kai Havertz fits in. And to be honest, I think he's had plenty of opportunities. It's not like this is his first season. This is the 3rd season now, and we've not seen anything to warrant that the money we've paid for him or to suggest that he can be a really important player for this club. It just hasn't happened for him at all. And look, he'll play probably quite a lot of games in this second half of the season, but I've got no faith in him to turn his form around. Yes, he's normally is a bit better in the second half of the season than he is in the first part of seasons. But I've just seen nothing that fills me with any confidence to suggest that this guy can actually score the goals that we need. And he's literally can't, because he's playing in that centre forward position and doesn't offer anything. All right, he's reasonable in the air, but his finishing's dreadful. And, he just runs about. And when you'll get into you're struggling with a player when the people that are fans of that player are using the fact that he runs about as a defense of his performances. Like that just isn't it. That's just a basic requirement to run about. And yeah, it is. It's time to go. It is time for him to go, in my opinion. Look, I'll back him. I'll never boo him or anything like that. But I'm uninvested in him. I'm out on Havertz. So I really am.
Yeah, you hope he does well and obviously scores goals the second half of the season. But at the same time, I can't
I can't defend it anymore.
I'm not gonna like throw my neck out there just to defend him and let's wait for this, let's wait for that. Like, no, I'm too far past that stage.
We've been waiting for almost 3 seasons now. I'm done waiting. Like it's ridiculous. Did you guys observe any influence of Potter in a match against Aston Villa as to what he wants? No, World Cup. It wasn't a waste. It was a good opportunity to work with the players that were obviously not at the World Cup and for the youngsters to get some first team experience. But I mean, I don't know about you, Pys, but how much do you think Potter's actually gained from this World Cup break, considering so many first team players weren't actually available anyway? So, I mean, I don't want to say it's been pointless, but I almost feel that it's perhaps not been that beneficial.
It's difficult. I was thinking about this the other day. I mean, Cucurella came out of interview and he was like, this World Cup break's been great for us to learn what the manager wants. It's like, mate, half the players who start aren't even here. Like, what are you on about? Like, they're going to come back and, like, whatever they've been taught, they need to be taught that as well. Like, we don't have time for that. So I know Mount and Sterling and Silva are back now, but, like, by the time everyone gets back, I'm pretty, like, by the time Kovacic, Havertz and all that,
I,
like,
mean, I don't think Kovacic plays against Bournemouth, by the way.
oh, no chance, bro. He played 7 games in a row or something. He said he was
He
knackered.
started
Like,
every game.
mate, it's ridiculous. But I think it's good for the likes of like Chukwuemeka. I think it's good for Cucurella as well. I think it's good for. I mean, I was going to say Aubameyang, but he looked pretty lost in that Aston Villa
Oh,
game.
mate, he looked fucking awful, wasn't he? He was dreadful.
Yeah, so I don't really know, to be honest. It's a difficult question, but I hope we do play a four at the back, because I just will be naturally more up for games, to be honest with you. Like, I've gone towards the attitude of the people who hated it under Tuchel now. I can't physically watch this shit anymore. Like, and I think I just think it's because, for me, I don't think it suits a lot of our players. Like, when I was watching the World Cup, I'll give you an example. Koulibaly, right? I think he looked really good most of the games in a back four.
Yeah,
But as a wide centre back in a back three for us, there's so many times. Like, I don't think he can defend wide areas very well, because
he's looked really dodgy.
he played well against England, right? But I tell you, there was a couple of moments where he got dragged out wide, and he was like, he could not deal with it. He just got bypassed. They were ticky taka past him, and I just think he needs to be in the middle, in a back four, like him and Silva or him and Fofana. Even Chalobah. Like, but it's difficult because we've got so many centre backs that want
I
to
was gonna
start and
say,
play, that you almost think, right, well, to make them all happy, I need to play a free. But then
well,
that
this is the
affects our
thing, isn't it?
forward. That affects our forwards then. You
Well,
know
that's
what
the
I mean?
problem
So
though,
it's
because
like,
I think the business we've done this summer with the amount of defenders we've bought in, yes, we had to replace 2, but it's almost like we've signed that amount of defenders because we have intentions of playing a 3. Because if we switch to a 4, which we agree, I think unanimously that it would be better for this squad of players, you're then thinking, okay, so if, let's say Koulibaly and Silva are the starting pair, you've got £70 million plus for Fofana not playing. You've got Chalobah, who's been outstanding, not playing. It's like it's a bit of a problem. It's a bit of a juggling act as well. You almost feel that we've perhaps signed too many defenders, and then we're wanting Gvardiol as well. I mean, obviously Silva's not going to go on forever, and you need to, plan for the future before, like, in advance. I get that, but I don't know. I almost feel that perhaps we've signed too many defenders if we're looking to play a 4 at the back. I don't really know, but I mean, you've touched on Koulibaly. Let's quickly talk about Edouard Mendy, and I almost felt a bit sorry for him about how big this downfall's been, because he doesn't look anything like the guy that was so instrumental in us becoming European and world champions. He was at fault for both goals in their 2-0 loss to Holland. I thought against England as well that a couple of those goals looked savable to me. I'm not saying no, he had to save them, but it looked like they were savable. And he just looks short of any confidence. It looks like all his goalkeeping abilities have deserted him. Mate, are you surprised at how big this decline from Mendy's been? And I almost feel that, like, I don't want to say his Chelsea career is done, but this second part of the season, I don't see how he gets back in the team at all.
I honestly, Mendy is one of the most, like, weirdest cases of a decline I've seen. Like, he was literally amazing for us, and he's just been so bad the last few months. He must be so low on confidence. But the thing is with Mendy, it's like, whenever I watch him, like, his body language doesn't look like a player that's low on confidence. He just looks
No,
like he's playing, he just looks like he's playing normally. He actually looks confident. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's a weird one. But again, I think Kepa will probably, stay as the number one. But again, I raise this question, like, go through the leagues. Who's going to buy Mendy? I'm
well, this
like,
is it.
there's no way we're going to sell him in the Premier League, just for that factor of,
Oh
like,
no,
he
no.
might turn good again. So, like, PSG got Donnarumma, like, and by the way, will these big clubs even want Mendy? Like, that's the second question. With the issues with his feet, you've got to remember, all these big clubs have really good sort of recruitment and scouting teams. The number one thing they're looking for now is not shot stopping, it's not cross claiming, it's, can you
His
use your
feet.
feet?
He can't.
So
It's his worst attribute.
Like, I don't know what the hell is going to happen with him. I'm genuinely so intrigued to see. Like, I'd love it if he could regain his form. I absolutely would, because it's one less position to worry about. But I do not see it. But again, I mean, I didn't see him becoming as good as he was. So maybe, hopefully, somewhere, you know, s- somewhere, somehow, some way, he can regain his form. I just don't see it though. He's so bad of his feet. He gives me a panic attack, bro. I just don't.
Mate, it's
Like,
so nervy anytime he gets the ball in the
you can you can
box
you,
at
you
his
can
feet.
you can train that as much as you want, but you can never prepare for the match day. So and there's already been links of Robert Sanchez. There's been links of other goalies like Chelsea looking at goalies and from reliable sources. So I
Yeah.
just think, well, you can do that all you want, but where the hell are you going to sell him to? Like,
Yeah, well, this is
I don't
it. No,
understand
no
it, bro.
top club. I don't really think that many top clubs are looking for a keeper, and if they
You look
are,
like
I don't think Mendy's on the list because he's
like
not in
like
that
think of
bracket
it,
right
right?
now.
Think of it. Bayern Munich have Neuer. I know he's injured, but they're signing that Nubel guy, whatever his name is.
Yeah,
Um, Juventus can't afford him. PSG have a goalie. Barca cannot afford him. No way. I mean, they
but
might, but
Ter Stegen's better than him anyway.
they have to Stegen as well.
Madrid have got Courtois. Atletico have got Oblak. Like, there's
Yeah,
not you
like
sort of.
yeah, maybe I've seen that Oblak could leave, but I don't know. Like, I'm struggling to think of teams. Like, I really am. Like, Bundesliga, we've been through that.
Yeah,
Like, French league.
maybe
Like,
somewhere in Serie A. I don't know. Maybe like a Roma. Maybe I don't think Patricio's that good. Like
nah,
it's
I don't see them putting up. I still think would demand 40, 45, 50 million. I think just based on his career. I think.
yeah. I mean, but that's double what we paid for him. I mean, I'd say we'd be lucky if we got 30 mil for him, based like right now. I think
But
we'd
then,
be lucky
like,
to
that's the
get.
thing that worries me though. If it's that type of money, I'd almost like rather keep him and just kind of keep it as like a
Yeah, but I don't think he'll probably look at it from his point of view that he's kind of too
yeah.
good to be a number two, and like
Yeah, I
the
mean,
goal.
he's not
The
though at the moment. Though.
no,
He's got
he's
to
not. No,
accept
he's not
that.
right now. No,
But I
but
know players have got egos, so
yeah, I mean, the goalkeeping situation is an interesting one in terms of like reports and reliable sources, as we say, are saying that Chelsea are actively looking at the goalkeeping situation. Obviously, not in January, but probably for the summer, where I think we'd expect one of Kepa or Mendy to leave. But if Chelsea are looking for a new number one, you could almost argue that they'd be trying to shift Kepa and Mendy, both of them, out the door. I mean, mate, where do you stand on a keeping situation? Do you think like a new goalkeeper in the summer is kind of essential business? I don't know how confident I'd feel going into next season with Kepa and Mendy again.
I think that will be kind of. I think my judgment will be made second half of this season. But I don't know what it is about Kepa. Even if he had a great second half to the season, I've always like the way his Chelsea career's gone. I just don't. I don't know. I don't know if I can fully believe that Kepa's like he's our number one now. Like, I'd always have that element of doubt or like I don't know. Like, I just don't see him as a Chelsea number one. Maybe it's harsh. I've always kind of thought it. Even when he's playing like ridiculously well, I always think, well, in two matches or even five
Yeah,
matches, he's gonna make like stupid. Like, I
yeah,
don't
mate.
know.
It's
I can't get my head
tough, isn't
around
it?
it. Like, I think that's just because of how his career's gone, and yeah, I don't know. It's kind of like it's almost like I kind of had it with Morata as well when he was on that hot streak. He'd go on a
Yeah,
hot streak, and I was like, well, he's gonna I just don't like. I didn't really believe he was gonna be our like Chelsea striker. Like, when you think of a Chelsea striker like Morata, like, it just didn't really hit for me. Like, didn't really hit. It hasn't really ever hit with Kepa either as our number one. I don't know whether that's
no,
just because of we had Czech who was so imposing,
yeah.
and then we had
Courtois was
Mendy
good
who
as
was
well.
Courtois, Mendy who was. They're all just really imposing figures in the goal, and I never get that out of Kepa. I just don't see it. But fair play to him if he is our number one next season.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something we can definitely look at improving. I don't look at Kepa or Mendy and think, yeah, that's a Premier League winning goalkeeper. I just don't. But yeah, let's wait and see what happens. It's certainly not the most pressing issue that needs addressing. Let's round out with the kind of last couple of players. Then, I mean, mate, your guy Mateo Kovacic. Before we get into how good he was at the World Cup, are you surprised that he started and played all 7 of Croatia's games, given that Potter was telling us in the lead up to the World Cup, the reason why Kovacic weren't starting that many games was because he was nursing a knee injury. I mean, do you almost feel that part of that was like he was holding himself back a little bit for the World Cup, or it's genuinely healed up? Because those two things kind of weren't adding up.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is obviously we never like he said like he's had like this knee issue slash injury, but he never really went into detail as to what it was. Like he could clearly play with it because he was starting quite a lot of games for us still. Um, but yeah, I'm surprised he played that many in a row for Croatia. There was a couple of games where I thought he's not actually like specifically the last game. I thought he may have just been tired, but he weren't going on his dribbles and like things like that. I noticed that with with Chelsea as well. I didn't think he was fully like playing 100%. So yeah, I mean, I think he had a great World Cup, but I'd be interested to see like where his injury or issue is at, and actually what actually is the issue. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
mate.
I don't
I
know.
mean, do you worry, like Thomas says here, that like when he gets back to Chelsea, he'll be nursing that problem again? Like, I mean,
Well, I think he'll be nursing tiredness. Whether or
yeah.
not they'll put that down to injury, I don't know, but he'll definitely be knackered. Yeah, I don't really know what's going to happen with him at the moment.
But I mean, he was outstanding in the World Cup. I thought that midfield of him, Brozovic, and Modric was one of the best midfields at the tournament. And we kind of seen like we know that he is an elite level midfield player. I see a few things on Twitter, and I do kind of buy into this thought as well. That do you think that he needs to contribute more numbers wise in terms of goals and assists? I'm not saying he needs to be like a Frank Lampard where he's getting like double figures goals from midfield, but I look at his numbers and I know it's his game is more than just numbers, but do you feel that he should contribute a bit more in terms of GNA from the position that he's playing on the pitch?
I think it'd be useful. But I think Chelsea fans would actually not like this. Wouldn't even be like we wouldn't even care about this if our other players were actually performing to the level they
Yeah,
should be,
true.
specifically our attackers. So I think this is only a conversation really because Kovacic has actually looked like our most progressive and creative player out of everyone
Yeah,
else.
yeah.
So the fact that he's obviously showing his creativity or at least his ball progression and vision to pick out these passes is like, right, well, he should be getting more goals and assists. Well, the others should like that's not his game and he's still looking the
No.
best here. So like that's the issue for me. Like the fact that he's the one that's standing out. Like he's a great player, but he shouldn't like when you think right, who's going to get us an assist or go on a great run today and play a final pass at least to a shot or a goal. You shouldn't really think Kovacic. You should think Mount. You should think Sterling. You should think
Yeah.
anyone else apart from, well, not anyone else, but you should think like 3, 4, 5 players before him. And the fact that he's always number one is like concerning to me. So yeah, it would be useful for sure. I think what he can improve on, there was a couple of times in the World Cup is playing the ball at the right time or just like even just some of his passing I think is great sometimes. In other times there was, can't remember what game it was, but he went on a really good run and he tried to slot a ball to the left and he just overhit it. And I think that is where like he needs to like perfect that side of his game. But
Yeah.
it's difficult one because he's not young anymore, and it's like how much improvement can you make there? I think he's come on. I think he's made a lot of improvement since the Sari
Um.
days. But
Oh,
yeah,
definitely. Mate, I've got to be honest. Like, I'll hold my hands up. I thought on loan he was fucking awful. That season that we had him on loan, he was dreadful. I'd say he was one of our worst players. And then, like he's gone on to become one of our best players. But I mean, I don't know if we would have even signed him if there hadn't been a transfer ban. I think we had to make it permanent because we couldn't bring anyone else in. So I guess
thank God there was
well,
because
is that is exactly.
you
But
could
just
tell he was a Real Madrid player. Like
yeah,
I saw this tournament as well. I saw the stats. I think he was the I think he was the second, or I think he was third. I think for the most tackles in the tournament. So it's not
yeah,
just
yeah.
going forward. It's like that defensive, like just aggression and like the way he just battles in the midfield. Like I do have some like complaints that he doesn't like always track the runner. But in terms of like if you're going into like a big game or a battle or a fight, like you're going to want him to escape the pressure and progress the ball up, but you're also going to want him for that fight, that sort of tenacity that we just lose it as well without Kante. Like
Yeah.
Kovacic. You look at his heat maps; he's literally everywhere. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's crazy.
It is mad, mate. Just on his contract, is obviously he's out of contract, I think, at the end of next season. Do you expect
I got
do
to
you
hope
do
he
you
agrees something, bro. I will
mate,
literally.
'cause I mean, you might know better than me, but I have read things that would suggest that perhaps he may be looking for a new challenge. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Because surely, like, Bowley, we know likes to tie players down to contracts, doesn't want to, lose players on a free. Surely, if Cover's going to stay, surely contract talks would be either underway now, be very soon getting underway because we need to know if he doesn't want to stay, then we need to get money for him. I think it's as simple as that. But I mean, do you think he'll stay?
Um, it's a difficult one because obviously he's played for Real Madrid and like with the position we're in, players of his ability, they want to play Champions League. And he's already done
Yeah,
Europa League with us, and I feel like he's at an age of where his career now where he could be one thinking I could, with the level and consistency I show for Chelsea, I could probably go somewhere else and I was going to say win trophies, but Chelsea do still win trophies, so
do still
I
win. Yeah,
I don't know. I think it was interesting that he got asked about Gvardiol to Chelsea, and he sort of said like, like I can't really say too much. Yeah, I don't really want to comment on it. Like I feel like if Gvardiol joined, I feel like Gvardiol would join as well, partly because of Kovacic being at the club. So
yeah,
I'd hope that maybe plays a part in something. But yeah, as far as I know, there's not been he's not like rejected anything or even there's been talks. It's been quite quiet, but
yeah.
the only thing I do know, which is quite funny, the other day, one of my followers' brother lives in Qatar, and he saw. I don't know if you saw the post, but he saw Bidad Bali and Todd Bowley in like the hotel hall thing, like a lobby. And he went over to them, and they were laughing about Manchester United and talking about Man U, and then they started talking about Chelsea, and the guy said, "Oh, can you give us Kovacic? Can you sell us Kovacic?" And Todd Bowley said, "No way." So hopefully that says something that they want to keep him.
Yeah, mate. I hope so as well. I mean, mate, let's just round out very quickly because I don't know if I'll speak to you before the window starts. What would you like to see Chelsea do in January? I think the obvious is to get a midfield player in. I think the ideal situation is one now, one in the summer. I'd say a backup right back and obviously a centre forward. Is that what you'd like to see as well? Do you think it's got to be three players?
I think it'll be three players, but I think one of them will be Zakarian, and I don't know if he'll fully join our first team or not. But I don't think the backup right back will be in January, by the way, because I think Azpilicueta will do that until the end of the
Yeah,
season. And then in the
yeah,
summer,
it's
I
a
think
fair point.
when Azpi goes, I think that's when we'll do it in the summer. But I think a centre forward will come because I mean Nazar said that he's hearing that the Fafana guy will go out on loan, which is fair enough.
Oh yeah, for
Did it,
sure. Yeah,
yeah, I did a podcast around him, and I'm pretty excited. But he does definitely like the guy was saying to me, the Norwegian journalist who I spoke to said they're quite surprised, or the media is quite surprised that it's Chelsea that have signed him. So yeah, but he was saying that he'd heard that like the Mulder teammates were like, they're not surprised that he's been
no,
signed by such a big club. So yeah, it was an interesting debate I had. So if anyone's interested, go and listen to that as well. It's a really good episode. But yeah, I think centre forward, Zakarian, and I mean a midfield is an interesting one because I feel like we'll sign one, but w- I,
it's Edson Alvarez.
no, I actually think it will be. I don't think it will be a DM. Actually, I think it will be someone that can play as a 6 and an 8. And I'll tell you why is because I think that way you get someone that can obviously play as a number 8. Obviously, give us another option. But then you've got someone that can fill in for Jorginho when he needs a rest.
Yeah,
But I don't think it will be that. I think the profile of a DM we're looking for will be in the summer. I think we'll get Declan Rice.
yeah.
Um, but I don't know. I don't see an Edson Alvarez. I know apparently Bowley promised we'll be back, but unless Jorginho goes, that wouldn't make sense for me.
No, I
Like,
mean, yeah. Well, he and Alvarez had a poor World Cup. I mean, he wasn't even starting for Mexico. I mean, I'm not saying that means he's a bad player, but it was interesting how he wasn't even in that Mexico sit side, and it was dreadful Mexican team. But I mean, I don't know. I just look at it and I think, how much quality can we actually get in January in terms of what's going to make a difference and push us towards the Champions League football that we desperately need for next season? It is really hard to do.
I remember, you know, when we had Marina and obviously Roman, like, I used to get so excited for the January windows, and then I used to just be left in disappointment every single window. We just used to do absolutely nothing. Like, it was the odd deal we'd do, like Giroud or whatever. But
I mean, Anelka was good in January a while back.
But it's genuinely such a dead window, and it's hard to get the players you want. But again, I mean, what we do know about Bowley's is unpredictable, and they've got new people in place now. I know for a fact that Winstanley started, and I know for a fact that Vivell will be starting soon. So
yeah, I mean, I think Winstanley was probably quite key in that Fofana deal as well, because he'd obviously was at Brighton at the time. So I think that he played a big part in that. But lastly, on the centre forward, then to finish off, obviously Broja out for the season. Terrible news, terrible luck. Really disappointing for him. Do you think Chelsea will look at bringing a permanent forward in, or do you think actually they might look to bring someone in on loan? Because I think I've seen something from Lazar Kinsella saying Chelsea might explore the possibility of bringing someone in on loan. It is really difficult to bring in a centre forward in January, and one that's kind of going to make a difference. I mean, are we looking to bring someone in just to replace Broja's place in the squad, or are we looking to bring someone in to do a little bit more? It's a hard balance to find. I mean, what sort of forward do you think we're looking for?
This is potentially more difficult than the midfield question, because if you think about it, like, if we bring someone in on loan or like temporarily, you kind of like, you'd have, okay, say Aubameyang leaves in the summer, right? You've still got, like, I don't know, like Havertz, and
Kunku now, yeah.
Kunku could play up top, but then you've got Broja coming back, and then you'd have this new striker as well. So you really don't have an actual out striker. So I feel like we're going to go for someone permanent that will eventually replace Aubameyang. And I think it will be what's his name? Vlahovic from Juventus.
You think Vlahovic? Yeah. Would you on Leao? Would you say no chance in January?
Yeah, Fabrizio's already said no chance.
Yeah, no chance. That's more for the summer then. Yeah,
summer. If he doesn't extend, then Fabrizio said obviously that Milan will have a decision to make, because he'll have 1 year left of his contract. So yeah,
I've forgotten about this as well. Moukoko.
It doesn't make sense to me though, because you have Fofana, Moukoko, and Broja. You've got 3 young strikers. If say Fofana does well on loan, and you have Moukoko in the squad, well, you know what I mean? You've got 2 young strikers. One of them's going to be pissed off that you signed them, because they're both going to want to play. So, and you've got Broja. You give Broja a 6-year contract. So what are we saying now? Because he's got this injury, he's over. Like what?
Yeah. Mate, it's really hard. Like, it's hard to find that balance of not stockpiling all these young players. But then, I mean, I think Moukoko makes sense to a certain degree. But then you sign Fofana. I don't think it does in
January at all. Like,
I'm not sure if it does make sense.
Yeah, I don't think it does at all. As much as he's a good young talent, like, he's 18. Like,
would you prefer to get him on? Would you prefer to get him on a free in the summer then, or just not at all?
Whatever makes sense. If we need him, 100% get him on a free. He's a great talent, but you know, if for me it was either Moukoko or Fofana. I don't think you sign both. The only interesting thing that I was listening to, the Norwegian guy said to me that a lot of people in Norway think, at least, that he's better as a wide player. So
yeah. I done a video on Fofana with Euro Expert, and he was saying the same thing. He doesn't see Fofana as an exclusive, just as a 9. He thinks he could be better playing as a wide forward as well. But I mean, I don't know. It's the same with Nkunku as well. Can be a 9, but is a wide forward. I mean, I don't know. The big question is that, do Chelsea want an actual 9, or do they want someone that can play as a 9 but is essentially a wide forward? That's basically the big question we've got to ask ourselves. Do we want an actual 9, or do we want someone that can play as a 9? I think that's the question.
Graham Potter's always. I mean, he had Welbeck, he had Maupay.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like Chelsea will always go back to no matter what. You know, no matter what we try, I feel like we'll always go back to the big number nine. We'll try again, I'm sure, for at least probably we'll probably go through 3 or 4 of them if they still shit. But yeah, I feel like we'll go we'll probably go for a number nine. I just think Vlahovic makes sense because he's young, he fits into what we're doing.
And
I
he's
think
good.
he's good. He's a great finisher, but I think he's obviously got the physical attributes. But the reason why it makes sense is because Juventus, like, just go to their door. Like, they're going to be desperate. They don't
Yeah,
want to
they're
sell him.
fucked.
Like,
Yeah.
they don't want to sell him. They don't want to sell Chiesa. They don't want to sell McKennie. But any of their top players, you go to them right now and say, right, here's 45, 50 million. You're going to give them you're going to have to give them a decision to make. So it's a serious thing that we should be looking at, I think.
Yeah, no, mate, I totally agree. I mean, that seems like a good place to round out. Guys, I haven't mentioned it today, actually, but please make sure you smash the likes and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Hoping to hit 3,000 by the end of the season, ideally. So then let's do what we can to get there. So please do smash the like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Thank you for getting involved in the chat. As always, really appreciate it. Pys, thanks for your time, bro. Guys, make sure you check Pys out on Twitter, linked in the description, obviously on his display name as well. Check his website out as well. I've linked that down there. Loads of great articles on there as well. Bro, have you got anything coming up?
Don't think so. Just the website. And my Twitter. I'm not posting anything personally on my website. In terms of, like, from my piece, because I've just done a big piece on the World Cup review. So yeah, but I think we're gonna do. I think 5 Brazilian talents article is coming up that we should look at after missing out on Hendrix. So I think that'll be an interesting one because we're obviously going to be scouting in that area again. So yeah, I'm getting one of my writers to research and see what other Brazilian talents are out there. So that'll probably be out in the next couple of days.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, guys, make sure you check that out. For myself, I'll be back on Wednesday lunchtime with Ben Jacobs to go through January dealings in a bit more detail. So make sure you tune in for that one. But yeah, guys, until then, as I said, smash the subscribe button on your way out. Take care. Catch you again soon. Up the Chels.